And hello, welcome to another edition of What the Papers Are Saying with me, Vivian Kai Loco. What the Papers Are Saying basically looks at the big stories for the week. We discuss the various angles journalists across the country have published over specific stories, which of course were big ones. So let me take you quickly to the big stories for the week. When I finish with that, I'll introduce the two gentlemen I'll be having today's discussion with. So do stay with us. We'll be right back. So welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. Let me quickly run you through the stories for the week and the big ones that made headlines. We'll start with the story to do with the Ghana National Secondary School in Tamale in the northern region over a story about the use of quote-unquote toilet cubicles for residential purposes. That story has developed a lot of angles, and so let me take you through how various news outlets reported it. We'll start with Daily Graphic. They said investigations begin into toilet dormitory. Ganasco authorities refuse report. The publisher says SHS boys forced to sleep in toilets. GES suspends headmaster. The Chronicle says Ganasco headmaster interdicted over toilet turned into dormitory, viral video. The Anchor says GES sacrifices Ganasco headmaster over own incompetence. City Newsroom says Haruna Idrisu kicks against interdiction of Ganasco headmaster. Still with City Newsroom, reinstate Ganasco headmaster now, not to GES. And then another angle from City Newsroom, Ganasco students don't sleep in toilets, viral video stage. That's the headmaster speaking then. Finally, interdicting Ganasco headmaster over washroom accommodation rushed. A park speaking over there. So that's some angles from that story, in particular from various media outlets. Let's move to our second story having to do with the IGP meeting the two major political parties, that's the NDC and the MPP, over statements made by both sides which are not, in the best interest of the country. And let's see how that story was carried. Ghanaian Times says NPP, NDC urge to allow police carry out duties. The New Crusading Guide says IGP engages NPP, NDC leadership over tension on political front. The Finder says IGP unveils 2 election security interventions. Still on that story, the publisher says IGP tells NDC and NPP keep police out of your politics. And finally, with that story, the Informer says NDC NPP uproar, police diffuse tension. So that's some angles for that story. Let's wrap up with our third story having to do with the State of the Media report released yesterday. A lot of angles have come around that story. Let's see some of the key findings of that report. We'll start with the Daily Graphic. They say political capture of media risky, report warns. City Newsroom says improve appalling working conditions of journalists, Gajepo to media owners. And finally, Ghanaian media not financially viable, journalists poorly paid. That's according to that report. So let's come back to the studio. Let me introduce my two gentlemen for tonight. I have with me Bernard Avler. He's the host of the City Breakfast Show. He's on radio every day from about 6:30 till 10. In the mornings. Also on TV, you can catch him Mondays and Wednesdays on The Point of View at 9. Bernard, welcome.
And sometimes on Thursdays.
And on Thursdays now.
What the papers are saying, when Vivian decides to bring me out of hiding. So you have to qualify this. So.
Yes. Thank you. Now
you're part of
it. Last year you were joining us. This year
I love this place.
You love the
looks
new
really
set
nice.
And all that. Okay.
It's beautiful.
Good to have you, and thank you for joining us. And I have, of course, my man who's always with me when everybody is not around. Selam is here with me. Selam, thank you. Selam Adonu is also on Radio Eyewitness on Fridays from 5:30 and also on TV on The Big Issue on Saturday. Selam, welcome and thank you for joining me once again. So, gentlemen, we woke up to this very disturbing video this week of a dormitory where we're seeing cubicles, supposedly toilet, meant for toilet, facilities, and being turned into accommodation facilities for boys at the Ghana National School in Tamale in the northern region. Very disturbing videos, but there have been different interviews around and different developments around that. I heard you during the week speaking to all those that matter, from the headmaster of the school to some members of parliament, and then the journalists who carried out the story. But first, your initial thoughts, what struck you when you saw that video?
Because of the way social media has become these days, when I see a message or a story that is reported on social media, I have at the back of my mind that there needs to be more verification. Because a story may be originally well written, but whoever shares it may have their motive for sharing it, so it slants the story. So it's very disturbing, the versions of the story I originally saw. It's like, how can a toilet be converted into a dormitory? How bad is the situation, right? Luckily for us, on the City Breakfast Show, we spoke to the headmaster, we spoke to the journalist, and we spoke to the member of parliament who made the story viral. So I think I have enough context on this matter.
Yes, you do.
First thing I'll say is that this story reveals a lot that is wrong with not just what we, I won't say what is wrong, it reveals some of the flaws in the way we work, but also the challenges with secondary education and also the problem of Ghanaian society. So what do I say is, first point, the journalist had a good intention and he had done contextual work. So he didn't just get up and go to Ganasco to do a story. From the conversation I had with him, he'd been doing stories on hygiene, particularly of girls in high schools. So that's point number one. So this is one in a series of stories. Number two, what was put on social media was a teaser to a full story that was to be released the day after it went viral. That's number two. Number three, he actually went to the school, spoke to students, and spoke to the headmaster. So he didn't go to the school. We are taught not to do a single source story. So he went to the school, spoke to students, initially said he had seen open defecation, which he captured, spoke to students, and then spoke to the headmaster. In fact, in the interaction with the headmaster, the headmaster had wanted him to show him what he saw. But because he had not blurred the face of the student, he chose not to do this.
He had to protect them.
So when I spoke to the journalist and I questioned him, I realized that he had a good intention. And the way the story was managed in the chain of release of the stories distorted all the facts, distorted some of the critical facts. So, for example, the story that Clement Park publicized, when he saw Clement Park, the MP for Busa South, when he saw the teaser, he then made a post which then went viral. Okay. Now, the other problem was that Mr. Park did not contact this journalist for the teaser, but he took it from an editor.
An editor from the
who then gave him a version of the story which didn't even blur out the student's face, right? So for the journalist side, I can say, listening to him carefully, he works with Rainbow Radio, he had a good intention. He's exposed open defecation. He didn't do all the angles of the story, but to the extent that he spoke to some students at headmaster, it's fine. The issue of a teaser is problematic because social media and teasers can be misleading. I think the treatment of the story was problematic in the slant given it. Because anybody who sees a story that says a toilet has been converted into a sleeping place, all right-thinking people will be worried.
Yeah.
So there was some there were lapses in the way he treated the story. Second person, the headmaster. I was happy with the forthrightness of his interview. He was disappointed in the angle given to the story and actually was quite strident that we have more space. So if the angle of the story is that there's no space in the school, and that we are converting toilets to
boarding facilities.
It is not true. So he was correct in a sense that the angle the story was given misrepresented what the true facts, as Diana Ingon and co went to find out later in the school, right? He went a bit overboard when he said, for example, that's why he doesn't like journalists coming. But the point is that He had been interdicted. He has spoken to a journalist and he tried to make his point known. So, for example, in the teaser, you could have also put the headmaster's view in the teaser to let people know this is a full story.
Yeah.
So, to that extent, there was poor treatment of the story. We have to admit this. All right. Now, let's deal with Clement Park. I think this story gained the prominence it did because a deputy ranking member of the Education Committee pushed it. And for me, the angle of APAC was also what made the story more problematic, in the sense that the journalist didn't talk about reckless, corrupt government. But the Member of Parliament says, let me read what he posted. Yes. It is only under this reckless and corrupt NDC Baumia, Nada Baumia MPP government that toilets are converted to accommodate students in a secondary school. You see. So he takes what he sees and then he adds political fire to it. I just got the videos below from Ganasco in Tamale, and think about most shocking. Nada must bow head. So a politician has taken a journalist's work and taken it to a point where now it looks like the journalist is part of some campaign. It's almost like IGP saying, so the journalist has been drawn into the politics.
The politics.
If you listen to the journalist, he wasn't really going on this tangent. Okay, so, and I feel like Mr. Apak also should take some of the blame because of the way a high-ranking member of Parliament, he said he did call the headmaster, but you see, he probably should have seen the full video before making the post. To make a post on the basis of a teaser is also guilty of sensationalization.
It doesn't give you the full picture of the story.
So, and he's a politician, so he also scored political points. So now he's thrown this journalist into this murky water of politics. Then there's the GES. I think the GES did the right thing. I don't agree with those who say GES. The GES, any serious organization that sees a teaser like this with a high-ranking member of Parliament claiming that a toilet had been converted to a sleeping place, first thing to do is to interdict the headmaster and investigate. Because the data available to GES did not suggest the school had an accommodation problem. So I think the GES has been correct in terms of asking the headmaster to step aside and investigating the story.
But the question is over, the GES knows that those type of bank rooms they are there. And people go and lie there to learn. One, the GS, even in its statement said they are aware that that school had enough accommodation. Yes. So on that front, why are you in a rush to interdict?
No, I think, you see, procedurally, a story, this is a very sensitive story in the public domain. A deputy ranking member of education is making a categorical claim that it is only under this government that you have students sleeping in toilets. So the GES has to say, you know what, this is serious enough to warrant an investigation. It's about what we know, what we've been told. We have to speak to all the sides. So I think the GES did the right thing. We shouldn't use the fact that people have been interdicted for other reasons. For this particular story, if I were the GES, I'd do exactly what they did.
You still feel
so
that
GES is
headmaster
great.
Should be interdicted?
No wahala.
Okay.
So then the other point is the general public. All right. So all of us, we won't take our time to read the full details. All of us will forward things that have not been fully verified. And the other point is that the real story gets missing. Because, you see, the story showed evidence of open defecation. The school has about 3,000 students. Over 1,700 were supposed to be in school. They have only 6 main toilets. So there actually is a problem. But because we want to either say we like the government or we dislike the government and free SHS is failing or succeeding on the basis of our own motive, the real issue of students having to have open defecation gets washed away, and it's a question of, are they sleeping in toilets converted or not? And when we get to the third issue for today, you get a sense of what this is all about. So I would say that two things. The journalist has to do better, and I believe that in the full video he showed, it showed a more balanced picture than the teaser. And he should learn a useful lesson from this. He should not be crucified as deliberately going to distort the story. So the headmaster, for example, saying that the journalist staged the story was not correct. He misunderstood the context. He went to the school, saw open defecation, went to the prefect's dormitory, and adjacent to the prefect's dormitory is this box room where people sometimes go and sleep and recline. And then, so the headmaster to claim that he staged the story was not correct. But he obviously misreported in his teaser, saying that it was a toilet converted. It was an old building, which was supposed to be a toilet, it was a box room. These are normal things, okay? There are things that have not been solved. For example, why do you have
the story within the story and then the solutions? I want to bring in some for his initial comments. And
Yes,
we'll look
I
at
mean,
the
so initially when I think I was driving when I heard the story on the newspaper review, and I was alarmed because I thought it was one of those downsides of double track, and that's how the member of parliament, Park, had framed it. So I was really alarmed, and I was really interested in knowing what kind of facility was converted to a sleeping place. We want to know how these places look like. So I was thinking, was the toilet seat there? Did they remove it? I mean, what really was the situation, and when did they do the conversion? So it was a bit confusing. When you listen to the students also in the video, you had a sense that they knew what they were talking about. They were speaking the truth. Again, when you listen to the headmaster as well, you also have a sense that he knew what he was talking about. He was quite open, quite transparent, ready to engage. And for me, that was quite positive, because in this day and age where a lot of persons in the public space or public sector, for various reasons, will not want to speak to issues, he was different. He really wanted to engage, and he was even happy that the media was getting interested in the matter. His only disappointment was that he thought that the story or the journalist dramatized the thing. He said he even might have, put the mattress and those things there to achieve a certain end. Back in the day, when in secondary school, students like to study at secluded or isolated places. You want to move away from the noise, etc. So with these, rooms just adjacent the main dormitory, it's understandable why students will want to go there. So, for example, if you are a hard student, as it were, you want to go and capture one of those places and keep that as your den or as your place. So you have your trunk there, you have your chobos there, you have your table there, and you can put a mattress on the floor. So, irrespective of the fact that it was originally meant to be a toilet facility, I mean, that place, according to the headmaster, had never been used as a toilet facility. So the design may be that of a toilet facility, but it had nothing to do with toilet as far as we know. So the students happily slept there. Indeed, the headmaster said that even in their time, that was there, and it was how they actually dealt with it. I also listened to the member of parliament for the area, and the fact that he thought that the media got it a bit wrong in the way the story was carried. Indeed, I side with Bernard's analysis on the matter. The issue about so the headmaster. So this is where, when I put everything together, I am more likely to side with the headmaster's side of the story on the balance of probabilities. I think the school indeed does have enough accommodation, because I understand there are 2 new houses which were recently commissioned, and that they could take about 300 more students, and there will be no problem at all. So I given all of them, that's a fact. And recently, I think John Mahama or somebody either built a house there or renovated one of the houses, which meant that they had enough. And the headmaster also said that they appear to be the school in the whole of the 5 northern regions with the most accommodation, if I may say. And so, given everything, I thought, like Bernard said, the treatment of the story left much to be desired. Perhaps he was just trying to tease the public, to get the public interested in what was to come. In fact, I have not even watched the main story. All I've watched and heard is the toilet story. And so, whether that was what he intended or not, the motive is been defeated. Whether that motive was right or not, I mean, the essence of bringing out that as a precursor to the main story is been defeated. On the issue of the GES interdicting the headmaster, I think it was the right decision. I think a lot of people are complaining because we've gone so low in our society that when things happen, the people who should be responsible are left at post whilst investigations occur. It is not right. And indeed, some time ago, Martin Amido had cause to complain that he's written many times to sector ministers or heads of institutions about persons he was investigating, and he expected that those people will be made to go home for the time being, for the investigation to take place or to conclude. But nothing of that sort was done. The right thing to do in a proper society is, if I'm investigating, you don't remain at post. You leave the scene for a proper investigation to be done. If indeed you are innocent or you are cleared of the charges, you come back, your benefits are restored to you. That is the way to go. I think the Ghana National Association of Teachers also rushed in some of the things they said. They clearly do not understand, this particular thing. It's become normalized that I may be a minister of state, you are investigating me for something I might have done in the course of my work, but I'll still be at post. That has become the norm. So this, which is rather supposed to be the right thing, is become strange. I think we need to reset, and then we get back to the place where we want to be. Then the last one I want to make really has to do with supervision. So if, or maybe the senior housemaster or the housemasters and the people in charge of the house or the dormitory or the house, perhaps you do not see anything wrong with the students using that facility, because according to the headmaster, it's been so throughout the 80s, so it's become normal to them. But if there was really supervision, I thought somebody should be able to raise that issue and say, no, this is meant to be a toilet, don't go there. Or maybe it's become so normal, and like the headmaster said, they did it in their time, so they don't really see anything wrong with it, because the place, even though it was meant to be a toilet, it was never a toilet. It's like drinking water from a fresh chamber pot. Even though it's chamber pot and it's fresh, it's not being used. I mean, you can drink water from it, there's nothing wrong with it. Just that the fact that it's been designed as chamber pot, creates a certain impression. I think that's the same thing we are looking at here. Supervision, I think, was a bit problematic.
Okay, guys, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at the real story within this story and what solutions can be dealt with regards to the problems we'll find in this story. We'll be right back. To stay with us.
Youth fades, love droops, the leaves of friendship fall. A mother's secret hope outlives them all. We love our mothers all year round, but on Mother's Day, we put Mama on a love pedestal and shower her with the affection that she so easily gives to us. This Mother's Day, City FM and City TV are creating the platform for you to celebrate your mother in a grand gesture with the A Portrait for Mama Promotion 2023. Here's how to participate. In 100 words or less, celebrate Mama for making the most important intervention that changed the course of your life. Your entry should begin with the phrase, "But for Mama." Don't forget to submit your name, Mama's name, and your contact information. Send your entry via WhatsApp on 054-998-6996 and 020-444-7033. You know how amazing your mother has been through the different seasons of your life, and we are here to help you tell it to the world. So send in that captivating story about Mama and stand a chance of winning a spot for her at the A Portrait of Mama dinner event and other thoughtful prizes. Deadline for the submission of entries is 30th April 2023. For more information, please call 020-597-3973. A Portrait of Mama promotion is powered by City TV with support from 97.3 City FM. Terms and conditions apply.
Mother, fighter and a lover.
Welcome back to What the Papers Are Saying. My name is Vivian Kailoko. Tonight I'm here with Bernard Avle as well as Selom Adona. We'll continue our discussions to do with the Ganasco story. So gentlemen, we have just 2 minutes each. Our closing remarks on this, what the real story is and the solutions that should go into that.
I think that for me, the main issue here is that because of the misrepresentation that has happened, the journalists and the people involved need to retract or do a proper story to reflect the situation on the ground. Journalism is a discipline of verification. You have seen something, but what you've seen, you must interpret it. So the angle that they used has misrepresented the facts on the ground, right? So it has covered other sanitation issues in the school, like open defecation, whether by way of preference or lack of enough toilet facilities, we will still not know. So I am saying, let's all not overreact. The journalist didn't deliberately go and lie. It was lost in translation, all right? The headmaster should be reinstated, and also they should find a way of addressing shortage of toilet facilities in the school. If indeed the open defecation is because of lack of toilets. If it's a question of preference, it's being worse. that students prefer to do number 2 in the bush. That's what I'll say for now. I think the GS should be commended for the swift manner in which they've acted, and I think the headmaster should be reinstated as soon as possible.
All right, great. Shalom.
Well, yeah, so I think it tells us the importance of doing a balanced story. The teaser, yes, teasers are good, but let's not, in our quest to get more eyeballs or more ears to listen to or watch our stories, sensationalize. What the journalists did, I think, is sensationalizing the story and bringing needless attention to a school that maybe otherwise was minding its business and doing quite well. I commend the headmaster for how transparent and open he tried to be and how engaging, he was with the media and everything. I think a lot more of them should learn from that and be more accommodating to media people so that we can learn. We all don't have it right or get it right every time. The journalists, so I expect that we will see what the real story is. And if indeed, we should see the real story. And like Bernard said, he should retract and apologize and explain that this was what he was trying to do and this is the real story. The real issue he was trying to push was a matter of sanitation, and this is what it is. I think when we do that, we would have all played our part in bringing out the issues really that needed to be highlighted.
Okay, we'll move to our second story where the IGP has been meeting with the NDC and the MPP over what? We've heard both parties, members of both parties, making some comments that do not inure to the benefit of the country in terms of pushing statements that will cause tension. And during this period, we've seen both sides accuse each other and calling for either to be arrested for comments they've made. Now, the IGP has stepped in. He's met with the two parties. He's come up with a couple of things, including election security interventions, among others, and subsequently released a statement to that effect. Let me start with you, Bernard, on your thoughts on the intervention. Some feel that, no, the last time this issue popped up was to do with Brian Achampong. He should have been called in. He should have been, interrogated over the matter. And then whatever was to be done should have been done. And now cutting that off and going straight to this, not really solving the problem.
For me, I think people need to cut the IGP some slack. Politicians create problems. They create tension and they push institutions to the brink. And then their supporters turn around and start playing holier than thou and start pretending as if they don't know that institutions also work within the context. They did this to Afarijan. They will go to strong room, do wild press statements. It was only his maturity and his experience that steered him through Ghana from the time he was easy till they handed over. And they are doing it with the IGP too, right? And then even the way it was reported that stay out of... When you read the full statement of the police, they didn't actually use that phrase. They implied that, okay? People should stop making it look like the police have... And I understand when people say, for example, there's precedent, all right? But if you read the police statement in full, if you were the IGP, what would you do? Okay, because politicians know what they are doing, and then they start equalizing. What Brian Achampong said should be condemned and should not be allowed. Okay, but the speed with which the issue developed, then the pulling voices of John Mahama, he said this. Asidu Nketia said, well, if what he said was so bad, how can he didn't raise such a big uproar when he said it? All right-thinking people know that the way Brian Achampong spoke and the manner in which it was captured was not befitting of a minister. And it should not be allowed. But the context of the IGP is that from now till December 2024, he will be pushed left, right by the politicians, deliberately trying to gain an advantage. I thought he showed a lot of wisdom. Call them for a meeting. Say what you have to say. Defend your petition. After they spoke, he said, I've heard you. Let me also tell you what I've been doing. And he gave them updates. The case involving MPP people, 14 of the MPP members arrested during constituency elections at Enchi. 9 out of 16 NDC guys arrested. He also equalized, since they were equalizing. Give them an update on status of 2020 election-related cases, Techiman South to Dio. And then he now introduced the Police Election Security Secretariat. That's the way to go. Because, you see, you can say that in certain jurisdictions, Mr. Champon would have been called. He will be made to write a statement. They will call Mahama. To what end? Okay. So I think if you look at the context of everything that's happening, the IGP and then the statement, I'm even more impressed with the statement and the detailed nature of the statement. It's very systematic, signed by the, I believe it is the PRO. It lays a foundation. The police met the leadership of the two parties at the instance of the IGP. Both parties given a chance to talk. Police briefed them on strategic interventions, provided updates on political violence, status of pending cases. Then the police also advised. That's the best they can do. What we need to do is to, as civil society, let our politicians know that this country doesn't belong to only them. And I think we in the media, we should start blacking out such nonsense. When we say we are covering you and you are doing campaign, we will have to blare out some of the things you say. Or call you out because we know you are trying to divide the country. We have to be responsible. So that we don't air all the heat and then we say ITP go and arrest. To what end? Look at what's happening in the sub-region. Let's be wise. So I think the police administration, in this instant, this is the best way to maneuver out of what will become a needless distraction. We need to put in place institutions to have a credible election. Pushing EC, police, judiciary, and everybody to the brink doesn't help anybody. Look at what's happening in Sudan. They are killing each other. Has America gone to save them? Has AU gone there? Has East Africa? We are all watching on TV. And they are bombing each other, and we are here. We are only praying for them. So let's be wise and stop this. And you see, this is my other problem. Chiefs, pastors, when the politicians misbehave, call them and tell them to stop what they are doing. And stop pretending when they come to you, you give them funds, and then you turn and say, it's a problem, or this. It's a problem because you endorse it. What you are doing is wrong. Stop it. And stop putting the thing in the police. Why should the police, they don't have children? That they should go and now be arresting people by heart when you encourage them to be doing such things. So I think the approach they use in this instant, in 2-3 days time, this thing will be calm. Okay. But I also need to say that one of the reasons why this is serious is that because of our history, we keep tempting fate with statements that, and I'm saying that at some point there has to be serious action taken about. And I'm saying on the media side, we can black out. Other institutions should use the power they have to try and nip this in the bud. I can't go and arrest somebody for making a statement. But I can exercise my editorial discretion and say, Vivian, on the City Breakfast Show, on the point of view, people who make such statements will blip you out. Yeah. So that we will not use our platform to multiply the error. The police and the security agencies need to think of more effective, sustainable ways of dealing with this. This may work today because the IGP is liked, is respected, he's been able to do this. What is another IGP? And if you also arrest certain people arbitrarily because it pleases some people, then when somebody else does it, then you're holding a meeting. So they also have to be consistent. Yeah. So I'm not saying that this is best practice. I'm saying that in the context, this was a wise thing to do. But going forward, they should know that when you go and arrest somebody for doing something, you have set a precedent. And you have to be consistent in that precedent. And I always say that the context is as important as the content. So if you're analyzing the situation, look at the content. The guy said this is what the law says, but look at the context of where we are and all that's happening around us. And I think when you put all of that together, the police administration have done well. Okay.
So no. Well, I think that the police response perhaps is their own smart way of going around a very difficult situation, caught in the middle of two giants fighting and trying to equalize what one has said. And so I was really looking forward to seeing how the police was going to deal with it. So even though I thought that the comments that Brian made were quite straightforward, and when you look at Section 207 of Act 29, these were threatening comments, and the consequences are quite clear. You know, no matter what spin or interpretation you put to it, I thought those comments were very reckless, to say the least. The action of the police really serves some great purpose, but I also thought that it was lacking in terms of resolving the growing view that when the small guy or the smaller guy does it, you are quick to take action. when the bigger guy does it, then you want to talk or you want to play around it. I think it's a dangerous view that the masses will have or should have, a very dangerous view that the masses will have if things like this fester. So I hope that this Brian situation draws a red line so that the police henceforth to be very consistent. If you do it, we know what the rules are, we know what the terms of engagement, and we deal with you. The statement is well written, said quite a number of things, key amongst them being that they've set up a dedicated legal team to subject all politically related incidents to legal scrutiny to establish whether there are elements of crime. I thought that's what the police should be doing every time. So I'm surprised that they are now doing a thing like this. So are they saying that all the arrests they've done in the past, they just arrested the people arbitrarily? You should first of all subject what the person has done to a certain scrutiny to see whether the person has fallen foul of a particular law or what the person has said could be criminal, prima facie. If you do that, then you can arraign the person. If you don't, then you have no business in doing so. No wonder the police take people to court and nothing comes out of it. Yeah. So yes, it's great that they have a dedicated legal team now who will be looking at comments and statements and actions of politicians and maybe other people to see whether what they have said or done, meets a certain minimum threshold of a particular crime. When they do that, that's fine. But by implication, I think what they are saying is that the comments by Brian and Bahama and Co., by in this context, Brian, did not meet that threshold, which I think was problematic. I would have thought that they would have condemned the comments and said that in this time of our, democracy or maybe constitutional democracy, we don't need comments like that, and then go ahead to proffer the solutions they have. But of course, I can understand the context. What purpose would they have said if, for example, you arrested Brandy Champon, you have party people massing up at the place. I think in the course of the week, there was a youth organizer, we understand, was some military and the people massed up at the Afrikiko area, worked with him also to the police headquarters because he was to report there. Brian, this is a smaller guy. Brian is bigger, and Brian has more organizational prowess and more resources. And given that he's a minister, the whole government machinery would have come, with him. And the fact that it was a comment made against the NDC, the whole MPP machinery would have come behind him. And the question is, what were you going to achieve? Even though I was a bit disappointed in the manner it was handled, because I thought it would have been, a comment or two should have been made condemning the statement. Arresting him would have also created a bigger problem, even though nobody should be above the law. We must create the impression in people's mind that nobody is above the law. And when you do it, and it's wrong, the law will deal with it. So I hope the IGP and these people will be consistent with this. This draws a red line, and anybody who falls foul of that should be dealt with. It shouldn't just be the smaller guys who are caught and prosecuted because they don't have people. That will not be a good impression created in the minds of the masses.
Okay, we'll take a quick break, guys. When we come back, we'll look at the media report, look at the revelations that have been made around that, and what we must do to look at some of the issues that have been raised with regards to Ghana's media. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Another season of the City FM Family Consecration is here again. Your family radio station invites you to the 2023 edition of the Family Consecration Service. Let's hold ourselves in readiness as we prepare for a time of divine renewal, visitation, and restoration for our families and loved ones. Join us on Monday, 1st of May 2023 at the Winners Chapel, Ghana, Accra, near the OA Bus Terminal Circle as we intercede and commit our families to God. It's going to be a 6-hour intense moment of prayer time for families from 6 a.m. till 12 noon. Come and let us reinforce the resurrection power of Christ, which ensures our forgiveness, healing, business breakthroughs and open doors, sound and prosperous marriages, divine blessings in career and destiny fulfillment over our families. There will also be a time for the renewal of vows for married couples. The 2023 Family Consecration Service is powered by 97.3 City FM with support from City TV. As always, the family that prays together stays together.
His favor
And you're welcome back to what the papers are saying. My name is Vivian Kai Loco. I'm here with Bernard Avila as well as Salama Dunu. We're wrapping up with our final topic to do with a media report compiled by the Communications Department of the University of Ghana as well as the Media Foundation for West Africa. Now, that report centered around some 4 areas. First, to do with the financial viability of the media, saying that generally many media organizations in Ghana are not profitable, most just breaking even, and then the viability, of course, threatened. Another area that report covered was the working conditions in the Ghanaian media. Recruitment, we are told, not transparent. Many people don't have contracts in the media. Salaries are pretty low, and most media employees have no health care support, among others. Then also, the third part covers media ownership and regulation, where we're told media ownership is shrouded in opacity. There's growing tendency towards media empire building, and then political faces are usually behind broadcast media ownership. And the fourth part, of course, to do with safety of journalists, where there's a growing sense of insecurity among journalists in Ghana, and then, of course, violations of journalists' safety, quite common in the country, we're told, among other things. So, Bernard, what caught your attention? What bugged you the most when you read, you know, were the highlights of the report or the full report?
I think this is one of the best pieces of work I've seen on the Ghanaian media, most comprehensive in a long time. And I need to commend the department and the foundation for this thorough work, over 112 pages of solid material. I feel the financial viability of media is at the heart of the discussion because, at least for us in the private media, it's an industry. Even in countries that are more advanced, there's a lot of discussion about how do you make the media financially viable, because it's at the heart of everything. You talk about working conditions of media. It's related to financial viability. Professionalism and integrity, related to financial viability, right? Even training and capacity building, financial viability. So I think that's at the center of the issue. Now, one of the reasons why the media is financially precarious is the mindset of regulation and authorization, particularly of private media. 2 examples. FM radio, you have over 530 authorizations for a country of 30 million. Ghana has the most saturated radio market in the whole world. It doesn't make any sense. And the focus and objective of the regulator is revenue maximization for themselves. So they'll issue as many authorizations as possible without thinking of the capacity of the media house to do any professional thing. Sharing licenses to people who are cronies, essentially. So there are too many authorizations for the space. And now the extent to which even the broadcaster can go is being curtailed. And this is across both NDC and PP. It's an NCA policy, right? So it's almost like a deliberate attempt to weaken the influence of the media and our policy. That's how I see it, right? Now, that lack of financial viability goes to the heart of things like poor working conditions. Average pay of a journalist between 500 and 1,000 cities. If you are serious about this democracy, we need strong, independent media. It's not because I work in the media. Most people only see the value of media when some powerful forces in society want to take their property or want to abuse their rights. Then they realize that radio is powerful. Up until then, we're a nuisance. So I would say the most pressing need that this report points to is the need for us to create models that work. And what has worsened the situation is post-COVID. Once the private sector, the main advertisers and sponsors of our programs, once their businesses get hit, all of us get hit. Agencies are collapsing, media houses are collapsing, and yet there are more draconian economic conditions being foisted on us. Haircuts, all of those things. Anybody who's serious about the media and the democracy of Ghana needs to talk about how the state, civil society, and the private sector can help create a more viable media. It's not just because we work in the media. Media is the oxygen of a democracy. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. The more open you are, the easier it is for democracy to work. So I would say this is not a report indicting media necessarily. It's an indictment of a society. For a country that likes talking so much with all the radio stations, the quality of what we do is not that good. So it's sobering, but we are working hard. We are the guys who pay salaries. We are the guys who employ people. We are the guys who do the training programs. We take it as a challenge. We'll do our best. But we think that other actors in the democracy need to be more concerned about where we are and come on board and help us.
Okay. So now what are your takeaways and how do we solve those takeaways?
Well, so the journalist, I mean, the key person in the middle, we have the states, the media house, and even training institutions around. I think each of these players or actors have a role, to ensure that the journalist does his work. Or the state, for example, must ensure that the journalist feels safe in the discharge of his duties, And they talk about journalists being important to our democracy must really be something we say with a lot of meaning. We don't just say it because we have to say it or it's nice to say so. So the state must rededicate itself to that, where, for example, a journalist puts out a story and he's chased around and all of that. That doesn't really augur well for our democracy. The media houses here is very, very important. I mean, we talked about political ownership or ownership in general. Ownership really determines direction. So I don't know how that will be solved, but, maybe should the NCA, for example, say that if you are a politician, you cannot own a media house. I wonder how that will work, because you don't have to be a platform, talking politician to be a politician. You can be quiet and be a very serious politician, in strategy and moving things. So I really wonder how that will work. And in terms of the financial viability of media houses, it's a real concern. I mean, when I was in PR, I mean, there are some people, when they come for programs, they won't do the story. Sometimes they have, and a lot of them are in the print sector. They have newspapers you've never even seen before, and they show you a newspaper that comes out once in 3 months.
You mean the twins? Where are they?
And you haven't invited them for programs.
In fact, you will not even, those people, you don't invite them. The stories will go anywhere. They won't even publish them. And there are people, they know the event centers. So, for example, every day there'll be a program at the press center.
Yeah.
There'll be a program at Alisa. There'll be a program at the teachers' hall. And they have colleagues. Yeah. And they talk among themselves.
But you describe such a person as a proper journalist.
Well, some of them have.
People just roaming about.
Some of them have some kind of training. So it also speaks a lot about the training institutions. They have some trainings they do 3 months, 6 months. You are put out there as a media person. And once you can talk well and not analyze person, but once you can talk well and sound a certain way, people put you on radio, or you can write well. Wow. People employ you, and they don't pay you, but they expect you to make a living. And they have no problem with that because they have their ways around, getting paid. So there was an instance. Some of them said, no, if you don't attend to us, we will create confusion, because they want to be giving money. But you've also not budgeted for them. You budgeted for people you have really invited, because people will carry your story. And they know the kinds of event centers to go where they make money. They call it solid. I don't know how to solve that, but I think, and really, I don't know how to do that. Is it that before NCA gives you the license, you must show a certain financial commitment, or show a certain investment potential, show them a plan of work, number of people you want to employ, how much you hope to pay them over a period. I don't know how that will be, and I don't know how it will come across, but it's a real problem that must really be looked at. And in terms of what they are paid, should the NCA or the NCA, I mean, should we appraise the media houses, and how often should we do that? Can the National Media, the National Communications Authority do that? Is that really their forte? Checking how much they are paid, the kinds of job they do, etc., so that when you fall below a certain standard, your license is withdrawn. I think that there should be a general discussion on that, rather than just, this report is great, but we must take it to the next level. The researchers have done what they will do, but I think the duty bearers must also take it to the next level, so we have sanity in the space.
And if I can add, you see, today I talked to some people from the financial sector, and they were complaining about how social media sensationalism nearly led to a run on some of their businesses in the past 6 months. And I said, you see, right now, you need strong, independent, traditional media houses to help to counter fake news. Because anonymity has made it easy for people to do mischief on social media. And if the media houses that are institutionalized structures are not empowered to do their verification and fact-checking well, we are all doomed. because globally, social media has made traditional media less profitable. So it's not just a Ghana issue. And I feel we, the people in the space, have to think of ways of improving our effectiveness and efficiency, right? We have a lot of thinking to do whilst we are still doing daily news. Yeah. It's our challenge. But I'm saying that for those who think that this is a media problem, wait till somebody, a blogger, goes on air and starts running a campaign against your brand. And by the time you get to City FM or Graphic or wherever to respond, it's too late. Right, yeah. So we've become more important now because we become the places for verification. Up till tomorrow, most platforms I'm on. When there's something trending on social media, Aloski, is it true? Can you check? Because we have an address. Yeah. So in a strange way, even though social media is making it less profitable, it's making us more important now for society, right? Because social media is a jungle out there, and there isn't any proper policy regulation even around it. So what I'll say is that we in the industry have a lot of work to do. But I'll say again, different actors, private sector, civil society, and politicians have to think about, because you see, politicians only think about media when they're in opposition. Oh, people, you are doing well. You are doing well. Let them come to power. People, you are bashing us. That's what they think. So it's very binary and very short-sighted. Media is a tool for development. Look, the number of young people who listen to us in the mornings is an onerous task. What we promote, the gatekeeping role, the fact-checking role, the score-keeping role. These are critical jobs. I would say that the media research institutions as well need to also expose the people they train to more practical ways of training. So by the time they come in, look, we spend a lot of time and money retraining people because they are very theoretical. So the institutions have done the research. For example, Department of Communications, they need a tight collaboration with Radio Universe so that it's not just doing master's degree programs in PR and journalism, but expose them to the daily rigor of doing the work. By the time I got to City FM in 2004, I had 4 years of radio training. All right, I didn't even study journalism, but that's the foundation for what I do today. So they must inculcate practical learning so that the guy comes, he's robust. So we don't have to spend all our time, sometimes 2 years. Yeah. You know? So it's a shared, but I would just say, look, for me, media is my passion. And when I think about the country, media is one of the tools we will use to change society. We must not allow it to deteriorate to the point that the situation we find ourselves in threatens. Okay. So your final statement.
Yeah, so I mean, this report is very timely, and it's also very concerning because of the economic context we find ourselves in. Often when organizations are going through financial difficulties, one of the things they cut is marketing and advertisement. And that is where the media actually makes its money. The media is also in the economic environment, but will have to bear an extra brunt because other institutions, banks, telcos, etc., will be struggling. And so I only pray that, I mean, we get over this situation quickly so we get back to normal times. And media organizations too must learn to diversify their income sources, and I think that will help a lot. And must also invest in training the journalists. Sometimes they go to some media school, they come out, they don't really know a lot. And for the young people too, I mean, they must be ready to learn. When I meet them, I tell them every time that if you want to do this, you must be ready to learn. You are doing this for a year or two. You know, what investment have you made in yourself? It is not, the media house has a role, everybody has a role. But you yourself, what investment have you made in yourself? You know, do you listen to some of the best people to learn from them? What do you read? You know, these things you must do for yourself, so that when you speak or when you appear, they know that, no, this guy is different. It's not like the rest of the people. So that I think we owe to ourselves, and I think we must do. All
right, thank you very much. Salam Adanu, thank you very much. Bernard Avle, we hope to see you again soon. Interrupting is schedule. Yes, yes. I know what to do to get him back. Well, thank you very much, guys. You've been wonderful. And thank you to our viewers. You've been wonderful as well for joining us today. We'll be back next week. My name is Vivian Kailoko. Thank you. Goodbye.